today I'm wanting to talk to you about how I made the snare drum for this song brighter. It was a horrible dull sound that we had. I only used one microphone, which was an AKG, kind of like little bug mic thing. It wasn't the greatest, and it was only on the top head of the snare drum. There was nothing underneath catching the wires. So it's this band is called Ocean House, and Glasgow-based band that recorded in the University of West of Scotland Studios in Ayr, and it was a Tama kit that we used in the snare drum as well. So this is just to show you kind of what I did to make it a much nicer sound to listen to, because it was a very dull sound that we got for the snare drum. It hasn't been sample replaced at all. It is the snare drum that it was recorded with. There's just obviously it's just the effects that I've used to bring it out and the techniques that I've used to bring it out. Right, so let's show you how I managed to get quite a dull snare drum sound into a nice bright sound for the snare drum, without using any sample replacement or anything like that. It's the same snare drum that we used when we recorded it, and so there's no sample replacement or anything like that for the snare drum. Right, so let's just mute all of these and show you what we had when we started recording it. So right, so let's just listen to the snare drum on its own, without any just dry, all of it dry. So let's have a listen. So there you go. It's quite a dull sound. There's no brightness in it. It's really dull. The microphone that we used was just a tiny little bug mic that we had, an AKG. Can't remember the model make of it, but the model of it. But it was an AKG, and it was not the greatest mic ever, but it obviously came out with this sound. So, and the tuning of the snare drum, as you can hear, wasn't great either. I don't think I used any EQ on the way in, but I think it was mainly the tuning of the snare drum just wasn't great. So let's have a look at the EQ then. So here we've got a Melder Production EQ, and so as you can see, I've rolled off the low end at 65 Hertz, and then here I've kind of give it some fatness to give it some beef. I've raised it at 170 Hertz by 666 decibels, no less, and then lowered it kind of at the mid-range. It's more the high-end brightness that we want. Some of the lowering it at 704 Hertz would kind of cut the dullness from it a bit, and then obviously raised it a tiny little bit on this EQ in the high end. So let's have a listen to it. Doesn't make a huge difference, but with everything else involved with it, it does something. So there you go. It's a little bit brighter, not as dull, but it's still not what we want. So let's just go through the gate. So that's fine. Right, now I've added an enhancer. Again, this is one that's coming with Pro Tools, and so kind of like a refresh to the mids. So it's kind of making the kind of high mids kind of come out more, and it does help. Have a listen to this. So there you are. It's already getting brighter, which is really what we really want. Now, this is a trick that I picked up, and it's basically adding some distortion into it. So here we've got an Audio Assault Head Crusher distortion amp simulator. So Let's listen to it at the tone, the default tone that you've got. So the drive is right down and the tone is right down. These are the main knobs that we're going to use. So let's have a listen to this. So that adds a lot of beef to it, but it's not the tone that we want. So let's bring in some drive. Just not too much. We don't want too much. We don't want to over distort it, essentially. We want it there as a to kind of guide it along, really. We don't want it really coming in too much. You don't want to hear it. Essentially, you don't want to hear that it's got distortion on in the mix. So let's have a listen to this. Now it's got the right amount of distortion that I want, but it's still not got the tone that I want from it. So here's the little tone knob here. So let's just have a listen and let's say around here I think is the best option. So about 1 o'clock I would say is kind of the mid-range. It's not really doing anything to the low end, it's just a mid-range and the kind of high mids that it's distorting really. So let's have a listen to that. Already much better, and so it's got more brightness to it there, and so I use that. It's not just to kind of bring out the brightness, it is also to make a thicker snare drum sound. I mean, a lot of the recordings that I've done, I've listened to and it doesn't have that, and the snare drum just sounds a bit dead in the mix really. It's not cutting through enough, but adding some distortion really does help, and it really, especially when you're mixing rock and metal, it really does bring it out a lot more and really kicks you in the teeth. Well, I'd say kicks you at the backside really. And then obviously we just got a compressor here, so that's just kind of obviously just to as you do. So let's have a listen to that now all together. So there you have that. You know, it's brighter snare drum and a nicer, much nicer sound. Right. So next thing I did. So you'll see here pink noise, and let's unbypass the send. So obviously reverb does a bit, but we're not going to touch on that really because it's just what we did with the brightness of it. So as you may do with the kick drum, you may want to, like with the kick drum, add some more sub bass into that just to kind of give it a bit more tone. It's essentially the same idea, but it just adds some grittiness to it and again makes it brighter. So obviously we've just got a signal generator here with some pink noise coming into it, and then obviously our sidechain gate, so it only comes in when the snare drum's hit. And then we've got some EQ just to kind of, for the tones that I want, we just kind of brought this in a bit. So let's have a listen to it with the pink noise. So there you are. You can really hear you can hear the pink noise there. Obviously, just because we've got the snare soloed, that is obviously the only reason why you can properly hear it. So you can hear it coming in, and you can hear the kind of tone that it's giving the snare drum. So let's unbypass the other sends that we've got. So obviously it's got it coming in a reverb and a sidechain, a parallel compressor. So that obviously just makes it bigger. Now I'm going to mute this channel. I don't want to hear that. So let's solo the rest of the kit and show you what it sounds like with all together with the snare drum, but without this channel, because this is again something I want to touch on. So there you are. It's got the brightness. It's got the level we wanted at, but it's still still something missing for me. So this was just something that I wanted to try out when recording this band. It wasn't primarily because of the dullness of the snare drum. It was just when I just wanted to give it a go, just to see what it would sound like with this microphone in it. So I'll just put up a picture now as well, just so you see where I had it placed. So it was in between the kick drum and the hi-hat, kind of in the middle, just about a few inches away from the snare drum. So it's kind of picking up the whole kit, but it's not picking up too much of the snare drum either. You'll hear it when you listen to it. You'll hear it does pick up quite a lot of the hi-hat, but it was a Shure Super 55 that I used, and obviously primarily used for a vocal mic, but I've used it on so many other things as well, and drums, I find it brilliant. So let's just have a listen to that without any, just a dry sound of that without any effects in there. So there you go, you can see it's quite a vintage sound, got some of the kick drum in there. Snare drum sounds quite nice and bright, and even though, as I said, the tuning was a bit rubbish, but then obviously as it gets some of the hi-hat in there as well. So it kind of picks up the kit as a whole, really, just from the position that it's in. And so let's have a look at the EQ. So again, it's a Melder Production EQ. Added some of the kick in just to kind of see, to kind of bring that up a bit. But then also a lot of the mid to high frequencies there as well. And then obviously we've just got a compressor here to kind of bring it up. So let's have a listen to that on its own with the EQ and compressor in it. Yeah, nice bright sound. So next I'll listen to it with a snare drum, with the pink noise, but with no slammer or verb in it. So there you are, it adds a bit more to it. And so now let's have a listen to the full drum mix with everything involved with it, so you can hear what it sounds like and the difference that it's made from the dull, horrible snare drum sound that we had to the nice bright sound that we've got in the full mix of the drums. So there you are. It was only the one mic we used. We didn't have any of the snare, the bottom snares recorded, but it's just the one snare drum mic that we used, and the and again, no, as I said, no samples. So let's have a listen to the full mix of the song, see what it sounds like with it in the full mix of the song. So there you have it. That just shows that you don't need to sample replace it to get a good snare drum sound. There are things you can do with it to kind of make it better. When recording, as I said, I didn't plan on having to make this snare drum sound better when it was in the mixing stage, but it's something that kind of you look for the frequencies that you need, and it's just time and effort, obviously, really does help. And there's obviously other things that you can do with the overheads and any boom mics that you may have as well, just to kind of do it like that. But we didn't have any boom mics, and all right. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.